T-minus 6 days until the first presidential debate. Everybody's doing their prepping.
Yeah, well, Biden's going to be in seclusion for the next 6 days practicing. Trump, by the way, is going to be in Philly on Saturday for a big rally and then meeting with some congressional aides and advisors. And J.D. Vance said if Biden doesn't nail this, Dan, it is going to be over.
This is the entire election as far as I'm concerned. The entire world will be watching. If Biden goes out there and messes up, it's game over. If he walks out there and a week later he's lower in the polls, it's panic in the party. If you can stand toe-to-toe with a runaway train like Donald Trump for an hour and a half, you are fit to be president, period, point blank. This is the whole presidency in a bottle in a week.
I meant to say Vance Jones, but I am the name assassinator, so there you go.
And then you meant to say Van Jones.
Van Jones. I'm sorry, Van Jones.
Okay.
I knew I should have stayed home today.
I was at an event with Byron Donalds last night. He was in town. He's on the short list for VP. He also is a possible candidate for governor in Florida if he's not the VP in 26, because Ron DeSantis, of course, is term limited. And he was talking a little bit about the debate prep with Trump and just that that Trump gets it. Like when he's talking to one of his senior guys, Byron Donalds, to one of Trump's senior guys. It's like he comes into debate prep. He's like, yeah, I know. Don't interrupt him, and stuff. So I mean, so that he was just trying to explain, like, he is thinking about this. He's not just gonna run through his daily routine and then just show up on Thursday night and see what happens. That he's thinking about previous encounters with Biden. He's thinking about previous criticism of those encounters. He's thinking about what makes the most, what's a proper strategic approach to dealing with the incumbent, Mr. 10% there. So that was pretty encouraging that he is actually applying the level of seriousness to this that is required. For more perspective on what may come on Thursday night and how the horse race goeth, we're pleased to be joined by Scott McKay, publisher of the Hayride, senior editor at the American Spectator, author of Racism, Revenge, and Ruin, as well as King of the Jungle. Scott McKay, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Dan, Amy, good morning. Happy Friday.
So what do you anticipate the dynamic will be on Thursday night?
Well, first of all, I anticipate that everyone right of Karl Marx will look at Dana Bash and Jake Tapper as the worst people on earth for the job that they're going to do moderating this debate. I think that we know that is going to be probably the story, is these guys are going to openly defend Joe Biden and carry his water for an hour and a half. Which, I guess you bake that in the cake. It's not that big a deal because everybody knows it's coming. I'm still a little perplexed that the Trump camp agreed to put up with that. But, we all know it's coming. There's going to be a Candy Crowley moment somewhere during that debate. And then the question is, does Joe Biden shout at the camera for an hour and a half? Or does he do that for about 45 minutes and then sort of devolve into a series of syllable salads, which I think is, has been his MO of late. The other thing is, how obvious is it that he's going to be, as Trump called him, juiced up? Because, we've already seen with the black pupils and the sort of overly shouty demeanor. It's not normal, and the media's been trying to cover for it, but it's going to be on display for a long time. And if Trump is disciplined, and I guess he has to be because they're going to cut his mic off when he's not speaking, you get the Joe Biden on full display who's not bailed out by Trump. This could be an utter disaster for them.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, I think, first of all, I think a lot of those syllable salads you speak of, and so forth, are when he has to stand and deliver on his own, when he has to read off a teleprompter, and that's a complicated process for him. But the interaction, I've been in debates, as I'm sure you have, including as a candidate. The interaction is a different dynamic than having to perform reading off a teleprompter at a press conference, or even to some extent responding to questions from the press in sort of a press gaggle. That back and forth when you're one-on-one with the moderator or you're one-on-one with your opponent is a different dynamic. It sort of presents its own stimulus. So in addition to whatever he may be hopped up on, I think he probably gets through that okay. I think it actually takes less energy than, say, for example, standing and delivering a 45-minute State of the Union speech, reading from a teleprompter, which he was able to do. So I don't know that I would be predicting him, just devolving into a muddled mess of syllables necessarily.
Well, we'll see. Of course, the other threat to Biden is that he just freezes.
Yeah.
Well,
they've been denying that he's not really freezing, and those are, what do they call them, cheap fake videos and whatever. But if somebody asks him a question and then he just freezes, there's not going to be any way to deny that happened.
Right. Well, how do you think Trump should handle that? Because I thought, he has to go in there knowing that his opponent might have a senior moment. And what should he do? Empathy, sympathy? Should he say, hey, Joe, take your time?
I'd do what Obama did. I'd go over there, I'd take his hand, and I'd lead him off the stage. That's what I'd do.
No, come on. Absolutely not. Are you
maybe
crazy?
Say hey, President Biden, are you okay? Do you need a second? Are you?
No.
Yeah, I think that's how you handle it. I think he's having a moment here. Can we help him out? That kind of thing.
Lead him off. Yeah, that would be like that's like when like Rick Lazio came over and patted Hillary Clinton on the head. That would be exactly the wrong thing to do. You got to leave him alone. Do not touch the other.
Well, yeah,
guy.
that's the thing. If you just stand there and he's 30, 40 seconds of just a blank stare and a frozen demeanor, I think what Vance said is probably correct. It's over right there, because I don't know how you spin that. I don't know what Karine Jean-Pierre says the next day.
Yeah. Okay. So we're all of this handicapping of how handy capable Biden's going to be. What about on the Trump side, and what his response should be from the onslaught of convicted criminal, convicted felon characterizations coming both from his opponent in the race as well as his opponents at the moderator's table?
Yeah, the key for Trump is be as mild and boring as possible. In the debates 4 years ago, he was a little too aggressive, and people, were sympathetic to Biden, even though Trump showed a little bit more vitality than Biden did then. There's going to be a big difference in vitality between the two. So if you're Trump, just don't say anything that they can, use to, call you a dictator, or, that you're some sort of radical change from what people are used to or anything. And they'll bait you by calling you, a convicted felon or whatever. It's like, well, yeah, but nobody really can say what the crime was that I got convicted of. So, if you want to call me that, then tell me what I did, because nobody seems to be able to do it. Much less Alvin Bragg is not capable of doing that. Yeah. So I would treat it that way if I was him.
Immigration, and how do you handle that? Do you talk about Rachel Moore and Laken Riley and just point out this whole list of kids that have been killed by illegals and raped?
Absolutely. Well, look, 8 years ago it was Kate Steinle. Yeah. And now there are multiple Kate Steinles, and I would approach it along those lines, and I'd say, look, the cities are groaning under the strain of all of these people that nobody invited here. Most Americans think it's time to start sending them home, and that guy over there won't do it because he's got ulterior motives. with these people. I don't. I'm going to, I will clean this problem up.
You know
We
what?
didn't have this problem when I was president. We have it now. It's Joe Biden's fault. I'm the guy that can fix it. Period.
This is an opportunity for a moment. I know there's no audience, so that's too bad, because if there was, I think Trump should have brought like Rachel Morin's mom. But he can do that even in absentia by saying, "Look, this is what I said to Rachel Morin's mom when we talked about her daughter's murder." And I think Joe Biden should tell you and should tell the American people what he would like to say, what he has to say to Rachel Morin's mom.
Oh, that's good, Dan.
Yeah, that'd be good. I'm with you on that one.
Yeah,
I think that'd be effective.
What about Hunter? Here's something too. We were kicking this around the other day, and I'll get your reaction to it, Scott. I'll tell you what. I'm very empathetic to Joe's son's struggle with addiction. I had a brother who was alcoholic and died from alcoholism and so forth. It's one of the reasons I'm a teetotaler. And I don't want to see Hunter Biden in prison. Certainly not for that gun crime. So if I'm elected, I'll commute his sentence on that issue. What do you think about that approach?
Yeah, I think that's a perfectly good way to handle it. What I would add is, I don't if I'm Trump, I don't think it was a good idea for you to put Hunter in charge of your family business, given the problems he was having. I'm not going to question your effectiveness as a father, but it's not something I would have done. Is the way I would approach that, because at the end of the day, we all know that Joe has used Hunter. Okay, I mean he was in charge of the slime ball influence peddling, thing that the big guy got his 10% from. That was Joe and the brother putting Hunter up to that. And part of Hunter's addiction problem was likely that he cracked under the strain of essentially selling out the country to the Chinese and the Ukrainians and Kazakhs and whoever else that he did business with.
And then after that, he should say, "But as for you, Joe, I'm going to put you in a confined space with the bull queers from Shawshank." So that's my plan for you.
Well, it worked when he told Hillary, "Well, because you're going to be in jail." It worked when he did that in 2016. So yeah, maybe drop that some kind of way.
Yeah, but when he had the power,
no, he didn't do it.
He didn't do it, and that is an.
I know, and she's running around acting like she might actually be a candidate this go around, right?
She's on the Tonys. She's popping up everywhere. She's wearing a moo white dress on the Tony Awards, and they played music to get her to stop talking. To get her off.
Did you guys see the Kyle Scheidler tweet with Hillary's picture? Wearing whatever that was. He said she killed Gaddafi and stole his wardrobe.
All right. Anything else that you want to offer? You want to put into the public arena in terms of advice and counsel on the debate? What you'd like to see? What you're concerned about? Anything else?
Well, and this might apply to the whole convicted felon thing if I'm Trump. I would bring up Brian Malinowski. And you guys might not know who that is. He was the executive director of the airport in Little Rock, who was murdered by ATF agents who were doing basically a pre-dawn SWAT raid at his house to serve a warrant for paperwork violations, because this guy in his spare time bought and sold guns as a hobby. And rather than send him an email saying, "Hey, your paperwork's no good," they sent a SWAT team to his house. And when we pulled a gun to try to defend his family, they shot him dead. And this was a week ago, and nobody has said anything about it from the Biden administration or anywhere else. If I'm Trump, I basically say this is the government we have now, is it's capable of, killing a guy like Brian Malinowski, and maybe we should start looking at that rather than using the legal system as a political gotcha.
Yeah, I think that actually is the play too on the convicted felon piece, to say, look, I'm going to be fine. But what really concerns me is these federal law enforcement overreaches. The pastor or not the pastor, but the pro-life advocate in rural Pennsylvania. This Malinowski case. Dr. Eitenhaim in Texas. This is the kind of stuff where obviously the Richmond memo targeting Catholics who attend the Latin Mass. That's what I worry about. I worry about a government that is oppressive and essentially unchecked when it comes to infringements on the constitutional rights of regular Americans. That's what I'm worried about. I'm worried about you and what these people are doing to you. I think that's a moment.
Well, I mean, because here's the thing. If you're a left-wing activist, you care that you can call Trump a convicted felon. Most Americans really don't care that much about that. But what we're talking about just now, that actually affects you, because if they can do this to Trump, God knows what they can do to you. And here are some examples of people having it happen.
Yeah.
And that I think is, I mean, it's a kitchen table issue in that, hey, we're not actually safe. Forget about the economic stuff that's out there. I mean, you have a government that, who knows, could come through that door any minute. And that's something that people didn't grow up with or are not used to. And I think it would move votes to bring that up.
All right. I wanted to get to this, too, since you're down in Bayou country. So the 10 Commandments in the schools in Louisiana, what's your reaction to what Governor Landry and the Republicans did there?
Well, okay, so, and of course this is being reported as, this is a pander to the religious right, and it's not a serious thing, and so on and so forth. What's being missed is this is a direct attack on, the old Brennan court from the 60s and 70s that handed down all of these weird decisions that, kind of stripped American law away from the country's traditions. And one of them was a 1980 case called Stone v. Graham, in which a Kentucky law that was very similar to the one that was just passed in Louisiana, that, would put the 10 Commandments in all the classrooms, that got struck down as not having a legitimate secular purpose, which this was William Brennan writing the decision. The guy was a loony leftist. But the Supreme Court's totally changed, right? And you now have 6 justices that very likely could see that, a document that contains the basic law and morality by which Western civilization is founded might actually have a secular purpose that's legitimate. And so, they're going to put this up the line, and the ACLU has already sued on this bill. So, they're in the process of engineering a fight to get this issue in front of the current Supreme Court, and may very well get a different result than in Stone v. Graham in 1980. In that respect, this is a very serious thing, and it's a very far-reaching thing, and not some pander to the religious right.
Well, right.
And of course, the left is absolutely beside themselves, and really are showing a ton of anti-Judeo-Christian bigotry here.
Yeah, they don't like God.
Well, right.
I know they're proving it.
Well, right.
God is
they're proving it, absolutely.
And it's a good point you raised. It's obviously the governor of Louisiana, Jeff Landry, was a former attorney general, so he knows what he's doing, and he has effectively said as much when he said, "I'm looking forward to the Supreme Court taking this up." So he's pretty straightforward about what he's doing. And you're right that we were talking about it earlier. You can make I understand the argument against the mandate, but by the same token, why not have the Supreme Court revisit this? I mean, Stone v. Graham wasn't written on tablets like the 10 Commandments. It's a Supreme Court precedent, which has some value, but it's not inviolate. So, of course, they can revisit it.
Yeah. Well, and I don't want to drag us into the weeds in this discussion, but if you know anything about Supreme Court jurisprudence, you know that there's such a thing as the Lemon Test, which, talks about, what a state can do in promotion of religion and so forth. And that was greatly weakened in that case 2 years ago about the high school football coach who was praying after the games, right?
Yeah. Right.
The Supreme Court basically threw out the Lemon Test on that because he was an individual actor. Well, this is an opportunity to try to throw out the limit test, period. And so, it's a very strategic thing that they're doing here. This is not just some, culture war window dressing. This is about having the Supreme Court reverse that stuff so that a state has the power to determine these things for itself without a bunch of left-wing activist judges telling them they can't.
He is Scott McKay, publisher of the Hayride, senior editor of the American Spectator, and author of Racism, Revenge, and Ruin, as well as King of the Jungle. Pick him up. Scott McKay, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thanks, guys. Have a happy weekend.
You too, and he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
It's what Chicago is talking about. It's Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan and Amy on AM 560. The Answer.
Conveyors keep your products moving, but when they break down, it can cost your company time and money. If you need help with conveyors, call a company that has the expertise and capability to help.
Hi, I'm Dave Van Camp, president of Vans Industrial. I've got over 40 years of personal experience in dealing with conveyors and their related parts. At Vans, we install and maintain all types of conveyors, including screw conveyors, belt conveyors, drag conveyors, and bucket elevators. And if you need related conveyor chutes, drives, guards, or dust collection,